Namaste, this is Aga with Balance Lab. Today I would like to talk to you about emotions and perhaps help you learn how to regulate your emotions better. This video is inspired by recent events, shootings. There is lots of activity happening on Earth at this time that is not pleasant to most of the beings occupying this Earth. And the reason is definitely lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, and major reactivity versus introspective process that can help you stay grounded and in your own power center. I don't record a lot of videos these days. I post mainly session videos because sometimes the things I want to say are too abstract for most of you. If you don't have your own process, meditation, really purification on all levels, some of this will be not accessible to you. But I'll try to break it down and keep it simple to give you some tools so that you stay in the heart center versus watching what's going on outside and feeling like the only way to stay safe is to protect yourself by, getting a gun, by putting a fence around your house. This is not how safety happens. I just got back from San Diego yesterday, and the place I'm staying at is close to the area where a lot of protests took place, a lot of vandalism, looting. There was a shooting a few days ago, and my friend was telling me how she was comforting neighbors and herself and recovering from it for a few days. And I understand if you are a trauma victim, or if you, I don't want to call it even a victim, if you experience trauma, and we pretty much all did, and you're in the process of healing, you're very vulnerable and you should stay away from certain circumstances because it might re-traumatize you, right? But this video is for people who are actively working on transforming these patterns of their emotional reactivity and are willing to put in the work and implement some of those tools, techniques that I want to share with you. Because it requires your attention. So it requires your senses to be turned inwards versus outwards. So that means no excessive watching TV and news, no taking certain directives coming from the government personally, not allowing the emotional intensity from the visual aspect of what is happening to affect us. So of course, limiting that is very important, but that will not protect you, right? That itself. You need to start working on activating your inner body, your subtle body, start understanding your emotions, knowing that most emotions triggers come from past events, and this could even mean past life or life of your mother, grandmother, people who experience war, people who never process their emotions properly. You are inheriting these tendencies, and they don't need to activate within your lifetime, but more than likely they did, because we as humans develop in stages. And the first stage of your life, before age of 7, is energetic to emotional expression. When you are in your mother's womb, you are very much aligned with your mother emotional state. So whatever she has experienced, perhaps she hasn't felt safe, perhaps for whatever reason, right? Financial or emotional, perhaps the partnership or other circumstances created stress in your mother. You are absorbing this stress into your cells, into your body, okay? And then through the age of 7, as a child, you express yourself emotionally. This is how kids operate, right? If they're happy, they're giggling, they're sleeping, they're smiling. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have sadness, you have fear, you have grief, you have anger. And that's how kids learn to express. So the first phase up to age 7 is the emotional phase. And if those circumstances from before your birth are still present throughout age of 7, you will strengthen your internal view of yourself and others based on those events. So again, if there is a lot of stress, if similar event occurs to the one that occurred when you were in your mother's womb, your internal identity will be affected by these events, because this happens in cycles. And these cycles last about 7 years. So from the 7 to 14, you're learning how to use language and verbalize your emotions and other things, of course. But what happens is that if the circumstances again are supporting the evidence of the first 7 cycles and before you were born, then you start using words. And it's funny how in English they call it spelling, like spells, right? You literally are casting spells. So everything you say, everything you express with that emotional notion, you casting spells. You are verbalizing your internal state, and that becomes more and more your experience in life. So just from emotional expression, you now are telling yourself and other stories about these events, emotional events. And then we have another cycle, right? From 14 to 21, that's another 7 years. And again, based on the patterns, we are more likely than not going to make decisions based on the first cycle and the second cycle. So from the energetic to the emotional to the verbal, now you have a whole story going on that you believe in about yourself, about others, about your place in life, that is not truly yours. It's just something that you absorbed. Chicago. I hope this is not too intrusive, but I wanted to get this message out there. So now it turns into decision making. Now it turns into a process of life that we believe in, that we follow, that becomes our identity, that becomes a principle, as far as making choices, personal choices, different choices, school, partnership, friendships, and so on. And this is very important to understand, that if we don't implement a presence process to witness the emotions and to start asking ourselves, when did I feel this first? Who does it remind me of? What does it remind me of? You won't be able to trace it back to the original trauma or original event that stressed you. So if you are planning to stay really anchored in your own safety, whenever you have very strong emotional reactions, first thing you want to do, you want to breathe. You want to breathe very deeply and regulate your breath. This is the easiest way to anchor to safety in your body. So I'm talking about conscious breaths, and there is this book called The Presence Process. You can look it up online. There is more information about what I'm going to tell you. But if you're not meditating, you can start with 15 minutes conscious breath, and it will calm you down, I guarantee you. But calming down is not actually resolving anything, right? It's just soothing, and the soothing mechanism is not going to change your inner reality. So after that, you ask yourself these questions. What is this internal feeling? Not the external situation, but the internal feeling, the complex emotional layers. What do they remind you of? Who do they remind you of? And you trust the knowing, and you sit, you close your eyes, you can have your notebook ready, and you will start getting a feedback from within. Maybe some images from the past, sudden memory, or a knowing, or sentence, or something. Because you are a walking library of not just this life, but many, many lives and existences. So you might not consciously remember, but it's important that you trust your inner detective. And you write down, you start creating a diary of what happens when you ask these questions. Investigate. And once you're able to find an event, you want to go into this event like if it is happening right now. You want to connect to the emotional state that you were in, the circumstances. And one of the ways to heal that situation is to become a parent to that character, to that version of you that was scared or suffered in that situation. So you create in your mind a scene during which you inject yourself, the now you, into that story from linear past, and you need to intervene, become a parent to help that child, to help that adult, and you can rescue that part of you, salvage that part of you, and integrate it, bring it forth, meaning you need to help that aspect of you that got stuck in the loop of that situation, because that is the part that is reacting to the current apparent threat. Sometimes there are many events that will show up, so you need to do it with different films, information that's showing up for you. And that could be one session, right? What do you do next? You wait a few days, make sure you create circumstances in your life that also support feeling of wellness, well-being, safety. So for me, it is essential to meditate daily, also do yoga, workout, right? Spend some time outside on the sun. I ground a lot, right? I touch the ground. I mean, I've been doing this work for many, many years, so for me it's not anything new. But if you don't realize that your surface level reality is very, very misleading, you will never be able to find the key to feeling safe, right? It never happens through people. It never happens through like love, romance, or other things. You are the key to resolving your story. So when you do, for example, the presence process, there is a time frame during which you integrate, meaning that you create space within you, accept this information as true for you, and you give it space to become your internal reality. So you don't reject it with the mind, you don't question it. It's like when you eat something yummy, food, and it becomes part of your system. It needs to become part of you. And then there will be another wave, there will be another situation, another trigger will show up, and bam, you use that process again. Breathing, just conscious breaths for 15 minutes. Then writing down, taking an inventory of your emotional state, and then tracing it back through these questions. What does it remind me of? Who does it remind me of? And again, it could be multiple stories, right? So you become a journalist, a detective. And then again, you recreate the story with a safe adult version of you coming and resolving that story in a positive way. You might not feel equipped to resolve that story, so you can ask for assistance. You can ask a person like me. You can book a session online, or you can ask angels. You can ask beings that you trust, energy of the earth, sunshine. Maybe you connect with angels. Maybe you connect with ascended masters. Call them in. So the idea here is that you are not helpless here. There are many, many different layers of reality that are non-physical or not available to most of people because they are so focused on the outside movie. They're forgetting that they're directing the movie, that they're the dreamers. So if you feel like your ego is preventing you from going in and you need a coach and you need someone who can teach you the process, please contact me so that you get into this mode of self-care, right? Because we're often told that we need to comfort others, take care of others. If you put yourself first, you're selfish. There's all these stories that absolutely don't hold true, but they're being repeated just like other things on TV and other places in the movie, in the pop culture, and they're only creating problems. So for you to truly help others, you only can do that if you come from a place of surplus, of having extra. If you don't, you're not even in a position to help others, right? So you might as well use this time and turn your attention inwards. Okay, because again, the emotions are aspect of you that are echoing to you stuff that has a much, much deeper meaning, personal to you. And I will finish this video with a little short story because I'm very symbolic and I like to illustrate certain points by using imagination. Imagination, in fact, is creation. So it's not something that is fake, doesn't exist. Everything starts with a vision, and everything can be broken apart and envisioned again in a different way, a way that you prefer. But most of people on earth have forgotten how to dream, how to be creators, conscious creators. So if I were to say to you that you could dream any dream, anything you'd like to experience, you have all these incredible experiences in your dream state and you're pretty satisfied with them. And then eventually you're like, okay, well, I dreamed about all of these different situations and people and adventures. Now let me surprise myself and let's see what happens when I don't control the dream. And you'll be surprised and surprised and surprised. Different dreams, different movies. And eventually, you will dream yourself to the place you are in today. So this is you. You're doing this all the time on levels of creation that are innate to you. But if you're focused on external movie, you are not able to even have a recognition of your fundamental existence. And for that, you need an inward process to have that realization. And when you have that realization, everything changes. And circumstances don't matter. Only state of your being matters. So perhaps you're ready to start this work on being more of a conscious dreamer and start connecting with your emotions properly in a way that is not enslaving you, because that's not the purpose of emotions. We operate in patterns. Nature operates in patterns. Nothing is set in stone. Even the speed of light is changing. This is not a common knowledge, but nature operates in patterns. Okay, these patterns, they might take a long time to change, but in our lifetime we're experiencing so many pattern changes, right? So this is something that is part of creation, and you have the same ability. So if you are sick and tired of feeling stressed out, of feeling unsafe, maybe you're even having panic attacks and anxiety, and you are relying on sedatives to help you cope, okay, and you're sick and tired of the misery you're experiencing, these are some tools you can use. I would love to hear from you. I would love to also learn your processes. What are you using in order to stay on elevated levels of emotions? And perhaps we can connect in the space of bliss. Bliss is very much a real thing, and it can be experienced under any circumstances on this planet. These are packets or sort of waves in the ocean. They're always there, they're always accessible. They're part of fabric of existence. They are built into that. So if you feel connected to this message, feel inspired, please look up the presence process. And if you need guidance, feel free to connect with me. You can email me directly. You can find me at balanceisperfection.com. I also have Instagram, Balance Lab by Aga Furtak, where you can find a lot of posts from my travels, my writings. I write a lot, inspirations that come from my inner journeys, and different downloads and travels outside of the body, because I am a very adventurous being and I like to get the information that is unbiased. Because we all are biased, right? Like, as long as we have human body, we have a context, we have an angle, and I'm interested in exploring other angles. So all my love to you. I hope it was useful to you. I look forward to connecting. Namaste.